Hey guys, welcome back to the Hunter Base podcast. What do Maverick Hunters do when they're not hunting Mavericks? They go back to the base, recharge, and shoot the shit. I'm your host with the most, Zeromaster, and with me again is my co-host, who is most verbose, Canadian Jutsu.
I know, I'm back once again.
You're back. Yes.
I am not sick anymore. Oh my goodness.
you had a nasty,
I had a really nasty upper respiratory infection. There was just goo. Let's just say goo. We'll use the word goo. Goo. Just a lot of goo. Yeah. I may be a little horsey every once in a while, and I may hack up a little bit, but I'll try my best.
Yeah, you're still healing a little bit, right?
Yeah, no, I was coughing so much from it that I tore some of my a part of my vocal flap, and it looked dramatic when I coughed into my hand and there was blood there, but it was just a tear. It was just pretty much just constant coughing. I was awful for about 3 days there.
Yeah. Oh god, that reminds me of Anime North 2017 when I was puking blood, or the time that Unreal unintentionally.
That was 17, wasn't it?
It was 17.
I wasn't there in 2018.
Yeah, it was 2017, and unfortunately, our friend Unreal got an unintentional Roman shower.
Oh god,
because he tends to sleep in front of the bathroom, and that night I had to vom a little bit. That's happening also again next weekend, but we'll talk about that later, guys.
Yeah, that'll be an outro type of thing.
But before we get into the topic, just go over a couple things that are new. Like, for example, this shirt just came in for me.
Stop skeletons from fighting. Skeletons are fun when they fight you.
So it was their 4th year anniversary, and they had a sale on. So this shirt was like $10. So I'm like, why not? It came with free stickers and pins from Fangamer that has, oh wow, good thing I finished Undertale. One of these is a spoiler. Just looking at it. So this week was the week from hell. It's always the week before my vacation. That's the week from hell. It's like, especially Wednesday, oh my god. Like, I'd start working on something, phone call, can you do this? Phone call, can you do this? And I forget where I was. And then I realized, oh shit, I'm like 6 tickets behind.
Oh no. So,
yeah, it got pretty hectic.
Yeah, no, I got laced with, gosh, I think they were 4 like 13-hour shifts in a row coming back.
Damn.
Cause you get sick and then you get some time off. I got 2 weeks of time off. It was great. I lied in bed and wished I'd die. And then from there, they're like, hey, since you've been gone so long, you want to make up for your time lost? And I wasn't allowed to say yes or no to that question. And they gave me a crap ton of things. But I've had 2 days off. I'm feeling good again.
Well, that's good. I'm now on vacation as of right now, which is great. But yeah, because I've got a lot of stuff to get ready for the convention. And also, you just saw Detective Pikachu, didn't you?
Yes, yeah, I just got back from seeing Detective Pikachu, and pretty darn good.
I want to see it.
You did mention when I was texting you that, yes, you do have to, it is Ryan Reynolds coming out of a Pikachu.
Which I'm okay with, but
I'm personally okay with, but I can definitely see how some people may not be.
Yeah. The only negative things I've heard from the people who already don't like Ryan Reynolds and didn't like Deadpool, like, it's those same people. It's like, okay, I knew you weren't going to like it, so.
Well, it's definitely first and foremost, it's a kids movie. Very first thing you gotta understand, it's a kids movie. There are some good heartfelt moments, but it's sort of like watching a good Disney movie, right? It really does feel like a good Disney movie.
I was gonna say, is it like the Deadpool Christmas movie that's like a PG-13 version of Deadpool 2?
No, there's some risque jokes. There's some jokes in there for adults. And yes, Pikachu says the word hell, but like that's really all it is. But like, really, it's family friendly, like rated E for everyone Pokemon game. Like,
well, that's kind of disappointing. Pikachu doesn't drop an F-bomb?
No, there's there's always the cutaway. They do the cutaway, the oh shit, and then they cut away, like when something's happening. Like they do that quite a bit. But I think the biggest complaint that I had is Pikachu. They really milked the talking Pikachu. Like, really milked him.
I can see that.
It wasn't the fact that the other characters weren't interesting. It's just, shut up, Pikachu. Like, there are points in the movie where you're like, Ryan, like, they just, like, must have left the microphone on and let Ryan go. Like, that's sort of how it felt in some instances. And I mean, they animated him perfectly. It's just, like, the very beginning of the movie, I was like, oh my god, Pikachu is talking, like, a mile a minute, and I'm sort of following it, but a lot of it's just garbage talk. I call it garbage talk because he's just like, he's quoting about something or he's making a reference to something that isn't relevant to the plot or anything. He's just he's like being Deadpool, and that's why some people probably like see it as, hey, look, it's Pika Pool or whatever.
Yeah. But overall, you thought it was pretty good,
overall, really good. It has a really good twist too. One that I should have saw coming, probably. But yeah, good on you, Pikachu Detective Pikachu or whatever it's called.
Well, I'm hoping to see it, so either we can discuss it or I'll do a thoughts on or whatever. I just want to see it too. Like,
yeah, like, and that's what I was today. Because I had seen Endgame just before I got sick, or while I was getting sick, I saw Endgame. And then this movie came out while I was sick, so I was like, oh crap, I really want to see it. So I waited until today, and I'm like, I have 2 days off, and my friend Desi, she was like, we should go see it. So we went. So she went to see it, and I went to see it. Now we're probably gonna have a discussion about it later on tonight.
I just that reminds me too, like, I haven't seen Infinity War and like a million other Marvel movies, so I'm behind on that too. I think I might just watch Infinity War on Netflix and then go see Endgame, because I still
like, you know what? To be frank, you don't really need to see the other MCU movies to like really appreciate all of the stuff that happens in Infinity War and Endgame.
That's
now,
true.
Obviously, the context and the characters, like the movie doesn't take time to like reintroduce Tony Stark or Captain America, right? Like, it expects you to have either seen the movies or at least know of who they are, which is nice, because I hate movies that do that have sequels that just retell the story over and over and over again.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
Like, then that's like the biggest problem with the Spider-Man movies, right? Is like, how many times do we have to see Uncle Ben die?
How many times do you have to tell his origin story? Yeah, I know.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why I love Spider-Verse, because it just hopped into my
It hopped right into it. And the Tom Holland Spider-Man Homecoming did the same thing too.
Yeah.
Like, because we went to see that together, actually, didn't we?
Did we see Homecoming?
Yeah, we went to see Homecoming when I was...
Oh, yeah, you were down here and we went and saw it, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the next one's coming out, like, around my birthday, so...
Yeah, no, it's actually due out at the end of the month, isn't it?
Is it due at the end of the month? I thought it was due in July.
Was like I thought it was... oh, maybe you're right. For some reason, what's coming out at the end of the month? Something's coming out at the end of the month.
Something, yeah, I know what you're talking about. God, there's a lot of movies coming out that I gotta watch.
Yeah. I mean, this is the time, like, just before the summer holidays, they just release a bunch of stuff. So come June, the mid of June, there's like a plethora of things to watch.
After Anime North, I'm gonna have to watch Infinity War, go see Endgame, go see Detective Pikachu, see whatever else.
But my overall thoughts of Detective Pikachu, really good. My best description is, it's like watching a good Disney movie, right? It's not offensive. It's entertaining. It pulls at the nostalgia strings as much as possible. Like, I'm a Pokemon fan, but I'm not like a hyper fan, right? So being that middle ground really makes me appreciate the entire thing. Like, this is the first time where I was like watching Pidgeots flying in a city, and you're just like, please be real. And like people with Growlithe, and you know how Growlithe's like my favorite Pokemon. So seeing people with Growlithe and Arcanines, like, and they're part of the police station and stuff like that, it warms your heart in a way that you're just like, man, this is the first time it really felt real. Because like, you play the games and it does, like, they do live with Pokemon, but it's not so tied to the original version. And there is a callback saying, hey, the stuff in the games, like the stuff that happened in the Kanto region, that stuff happened in this universe. So the games happen in this universe. So that's a nice little continuity nod that I'm pretty happy about.
I heard that originally they wanted to make a live action version of Red's story, and I think it was Nintendo shot that down because they said they wanted something different. And then that's how Detective Pikachu came out, because I guess...
Well, it fits this good balance between being Pokemon related, but it doesn't need to follow a formula of the games. Like, just imagine, like, I guess the best way to maybe make a traditional Pokemon movie where it's like the gyms and then the league and everything is you'd have to do it sort of like Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Yeah.
In that type of style where, you know, like there's the 7 Evil X's and stuff like that, where they have to sort of introduce these characters, but it feels like it's like a shot movie rather than like an actual progressive mystery and story, because it's a detective story.
I wonder if Nintendo will push for an NCU. And then instead of having Avengers, they have Smash Brothers.
Oh, God. I don't know. I don't know if I could handle that, though, because of stuff that happens in the end, which I won't spoil. I don't think that's the angle they're going for.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. A lot of people kind of be like, oh, maybe it'll be their new cash cow since the whole Avengers stuff is going to, so like, whatever.
I wouldn't mind there being like a Nintendo verse, like the idea that there is like actual like movies that are based off of this, but Pokemon has transcended Nintendo in a certain way, right? Whereas in like Mario, he's the brand of Nintendo, right? So when it comes to Pikachu, though he's recognizable and people know that Nintendo produces and creates these games, Pokemon is its own giant, right? It's the same. It's the same ideology when it comes to, and this sort of hops into our topic a little bit, is there are people that play WoW. They don't play any other video games. They just play World of Warcraft. Right? Exactly. And it's the same thing with Pokemon. It's the same thing with like games on your phones and other things like that.
Yeah.
Exactly. That they're not even casual gamers. They are one game players.
Mm-hmm. Oh, something I forgot to mention. This is episode 30, by the way, of the podcast.
30 episodes?
Oh my God.
Oh my God. We're almost about to have our middle life crisis. Because that's apparently the new 30 thing.
There's as many episodes of this podcast as how old I am right now. So
almost.
Yeah. So our topic today that we're going to talk about is essentially something that's come up a lot recently, specifically with streaming services like Google Stadia and Apple's gaming streaming service. So basically, we're just going to talk about games as a service, because there's this big video by, I can't remember the dude's name.
Oh gosh, I know who you're speaking about too.
Yeah, he did this long video and somebody shared it to me.
I think it was Jim Sterling originally he pushed that video. Mm-hmm. I remember on his Twitter, and he even mentioned it in a couple of his videos talking about it. Because it actually had good research, pros, cons, like actual facts, real facts about how the industry works. And you know, I understand why Zero specifically wants to talk to me about this, because as some of you know, I'm an avid player of Final Fantasy XIV, which is technically a game with service, even though I do pay a subscription fee to play it. And like obviously with the expansion coming out at the end of next month, there's, you know, like it's a hot button topic, because, you know, things that have been happening in the gaming sphere are starting to, I guess, come to a head.
I think Cursed Farms, I think, is who did it. That's the guy's name. And the video's like an hour and 15 minutes long. It's
worth watching though, or at least listening. Like, you don't need, there's not as much visual stuff. You can just sort of stick it on the background and listen to it.
And the video is called Games as a Service is Fraud, which basically just goes over what Games as a Service is. And it's perfect that we're talking about this because, like I said, Google and Apple have just launched their gaming streaming services, and we also have gaming streaming services like PlayStation Now, and I think...
there's the Pass, the Xbox Game Pass,
is that a streaming service, or is that like a download service?
It's download and streaming. You can stream or you can download.
I think PlayStation Now you can as well. You can
no, that's the reason why I was thinking maybe to give it a shot and a try.
So there's a couple of things to talk about. So we have had games that are services before, like World of Warcraft, or in case with you, and sometimes me when I once a year. Well,
like they do have a slight difference between a game as a service versus a game that is like a subscription base. Like, for example, you buy Overwatch, and now you own Overwatch. Yeah. However, you can only play it online. There's no single player content. There's nothing, right? And they update it. And to Blizzard's credit, they do update most of the stuff for free. Now, the cosmetics are free, but not really free.
Yeah.
And then there's something like WoW, or there's something like 14, where the developers constantly update it, but I'm paying a subscription, which means that I'm signing up to play the game. So if I stop paying, I can't play the game. But my money does go towards the actual, like, you could say that some people can argue the fact that the subscription isn't worth the content that they give us, but like that's a different topic, right?
Yeah.
Because they are services. It's like how Netflix is a service, right? Because it's giving you access to their movie library, but as soon as you don't pay the fine, you don't get it anymore.
Yeah,
right. It's like old video game rentals.
It's and the reason I wanted to talk about this is because WoW, like, there is stuff like WoW and Final Fantasy XIV, but there's also a game streaming services that I used to use. If anybody back in the early or in the mid to late 2000s remembers OnLive, myself and many other people used that. And it is, I'll get more into this later, but OnLive was an example of like how to not do a game service in terms of what the back end and whatnot's going to be. But I'll get into that a little later. I guess the main thing to talk about is, like, essentially when we mean games as a service is, I think, like a streaming service or a game that has a subscription. Like, you pay a subscription fee.
The idea, it's not just a subscription fee. It's more along the lines of a game that is only accessible by playing it online, right? So, for example, most phone games, like things like Fire Emblem Heroes, I play Love Live, some of the Naruto gacha games, like anything that's a gacha game from like Japan or Korea or stuff like that. Those types of games fall under games as services because you have to log on to Google Play, or you have to log on to their specific servers, and you are given, you can't play the game unless you connect online. It's not really along the lines of, like, for example, even PlayStation Now, it's providing you a game library, which now you can download. You didn't used to, which would fall under the fraud category.
Yeah.
But it's the idea that I paid $60 for Overwatch, but if Blizzard decides that it doesn't bring in money anymore, then that $60 ends up being worthless. Like, I just wasted $60 because I can't play Overwatch otherwise. So that's more along the lines of what games as a service is.
Yeah.
It's not the fact that there's a subscription fee. Like, it's not providing like a library. It's like going into a video store, right? I used to work at a video store, and people would walk in and they would make an account. They'd get a free account, but they'd have to pay per rental. Right? But then they'd have to return it. And if they didn't return it, they would have to pay a fee. Yeah. That's what PlayStation Now, the Xbox Pass, Netflix, and things like that. So they're not really games as services. They are providing games for you to play as a service.
Yeah.
Under a subscription fee.
So that leads me back to OnLive, because OnLive didn't specifically, I don't believe it specifically had a subscription fee, but you bought your games on it. But they were all streamed. And the only reason I used it is I didn't ever buy any games. They offered free games all the time. Like, getting an account was free. If you wanted to use it. And then they would stream games to you. And we'll get into this more later, but it wasn't great because, the point of it was, and the point that Google's making with their new thing, Stadia, is that you don't need to have a super powerful computer. It will use cloud computing to give you a more powerful enough computer to run these games. The problem was with OnLive is I'd be lucky to get 20 frames per second on some games.
Well, yeah, it still requires a good internet connection.
Yeah,
like, your computer can be shit, but you need to have a high-speed internet connection.
And here's the thing, like, at the time, like, when OnLive was a thing, my internet connection was considered one of the faster internet connections. Like, not everybody, fiber wasn't readily available to everyone. It was mostly for businesses. I have cable internet, just for example. I get 100. I'm supposed to get on plugged in on cable, 100 megs down. That's my connection, which is not slow by any means, but it's not fiber, just for example, or it's not any other high speed higher than that. I'm not complaining about my internet connection. Certainly not. I'd like it to be a little faster, but beggars can't be choosers sometimes.
Yeah, like when it comes to North American speeds, we're never gonna rival like Japan or South Korea in their crazy internet spheres. Like, to think that Seoul has complete free Wi-Fi. The entire city just has complete free Wi-Fi all across the entire city.
That's
like
crazy.
we don't have that here in North America.
Yeah.
There may be a Starbucks on every block and it may have its own internet, but you got to sign in to each one and you need to give away, your firstborn child and buy 7 coffees and get a free minute on their Wi-Fi connection.
Yeah. And we don't have the infrastructure for it. And this is why I'm a little concerned, because at the time, like I was saying, when OnLive was a thing, I had what it was considered a high-speed connection. So I should have been able to play the games that they were offering at least 30 frames per second, or at least playable.
Well, how old was this service? Because I didn't use it personally.
I think OnLive. I can't remember exactly.
Because you have to, like you said, when you say there wasn't fiber and other things, you sort of have to give a time frame about how different it would be compared to today, right? Because if this was a service that happened 7 years ago, then things have evolved since then.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But the way they were advertising at the time was that you would be able to do it on a connection like mine. Like, OnLive was around since it started in 2003 is when the company started. I think the service started in 2005, 2006, and then it ended in 2012. Sony bought them out, and I think they used They
may have used the blueprints of that to make PlayStation Now.
Yeah, to make PlayStation Now. And I haven't used PlayStation Now, but I've heard it's good. But the thing that I'm concerned with is because Google really showed off Stadia. And cloud computing, I think most people don't understand how cloud computing works. I think they hear the words cloud computing, and then people they have a negative connotation for it. So cloud computing is impressive. It is good. It's something that is going to replace the need for having to upgrade your hardware, every 3-4 years. But the problem is we're not there yet in terms of infrastructure. So Google's big thing is they're going to say, it doesn't matter where you play. You can play it on your phone, your Chromebook, your TV that has, that's a smart TV, whatever. You can play your game and you can seamlessly move the experience from each one. But they also don't say if you're on fiber. So
yeah,
and that's the problem.
This is what marketing does. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but marketing has always been like that. It's always, whenever they talk about the best thing that it can do, they're always talking about if it it will have a little disclaimer under the ad that will say, high speed internet required or whatever, but they don't give you the specs of what high speed internet means.
It's right? And when I was watching the presentation, I'm like, guys, this is impressive, but what is the limit? What internet connection do you need to have? Blondie wouldn't be able to use Stadia. There's no way, unless if they can somehow make 4K at 60 frames per second work on 5 megabits per second down, that's impressive. But I don't think they can do that.
No. But that's the thing is for example, all the games that are coming out, we look at we'll just take Resident Evil 2, right? Resident Evil 2's remake. You know how gorgeous that game is, right? But the amount of processing that game requires, whether it's on PC or on your PlayStation and everything, is ridiculous. Then you also need to have these servers that are able to simultaneously stream it to thousands of homes at the same time. And then you have to worry about internet hiccups. Like, are we going to find new weird glitches in video games just because, like, you can throttle your internet and make Leon, like, teleport, like, halfway across the map or something like that? Like, there's so many little variants when it comes to streaming as a service. I think it more goes along the lines of, like, it streams and downloads, and then it just sort of compacts it in a way that it sort of plays the game in sort of like little chunks as you go through it. Because I don't know, maybe because I haven't really like delved into proper game streaming, but anytime that I've played a streamed game, there's always this feeling of it's just a little bit slow, right? Like, like things like WoW or Final Fantasy XIV, the client is actually on my PC. Almost all the assets are on my PC. The only information that is being exchanged between my computer and their servers is monster data. So, like, for example, there may be like a giant enemy crab out in the middle of the field, right? And it like on my server, my computer pings the server to make it so it spawns on my computer. So every once in a while, and it hasn't happened to me because I have a relatively good connection, but I do have friends that have mediocre connections that just say a boss is programmed to disappear and then reappear after a certain seconds. Like it burrows underground. It's supposed to be gone on the playing field. Sometimes with internet hiccups and lag, it just never comes back for some of my friends until it goes through the animation again, right?
Oh man,
because that server ping, somehow during that time it lost the coding or whatever for that. But it's not like the boss, the crab itself doesn't exist on my computer. It is there. It's just it doesn't get the information to make it display that the crab's there.
One good example I have is sometimes when we play games with Blondie, because his connection is so low, like it's not like dial-up or anything, but because it's so low, sometimes we'll play Monster Hunter or something, and his character will just be hopping around on our screen.
Well, that's a latency issue. That's not really like a stream service. That's not like the online client doing that. Mm-hmm. It's sort of like, actually, speaking of Monster Hunter, a good example is on the disc or on your PC or PlayStation 4 is, the small monsters? The small monsters spawn on our maps, but they don't spawn in the same places. So if I go and attack a fly somewhere, it may explode on yours like 5 or 6 feet away, but on my screen it's there because the actual game loads 5 flies into this area. However, because they're very small monsters and having it pinged on an internet server would be way too much computing power to make sure that everything is in the same place for every player, it makes it unique in a spot for me. But when I kill it, it still makes it look like it's dead on your screen, right? Mm-hmm. So those 5, if I kill one of the 5 flies, there's only 4. So on your screen, it shows 4. Mm-hmm. But the smaller monsters they're never usually in the same places on our screen. That's more along the lines of how the internet works. Because like when Blondie's hopping around, that's his internet connection and us trying to the game trying to figure out where he is. Mm-hmm. Because he disconnects for like a split second and our game's like, where the fuck is he? And then he pops up somewhere else, or he slides, or he does something that just to, whether it's rollback netcode and stuff like that. This is not really how games as a service works in the same instance, because a lot of the times the idea is like you're remote playing a video game. That's more what games as a service or the way that you're describing it when it comes to things like PlayStation Now and Xbox Game Pass. Yeah. That's what they're doing, is they are streaming a game playing on a server. Like they're emulating it playing on a server and then streaming it to you live, and then you want one-to-one with it. Whereas in things like Monster Hunter and like latency between players, like in FF7, or not FF7, in Final Fantasy XIV, that I get to see the approximation of where my allies are, but they're not actually where they are unless they're standing still. So if just say I move forward, it takes then just because how 14's rollback code works is it will register them moving about a second later. So when you see a circle on the ground and I move out of it, it may look like I stand in it long enough. On your screen, you'll see I just moved out of it in the nick of time, whereas on my screen I was out of it much earlier than that. Mm-hmm. But that's just how the rollback netcode works. It happens in fighting games as well. It's to sort of mirror and make it easier for the game to be able to play smoothly versus it just being choppy because every time the server is interrupted, it's everything pauses, right? Nobody wants that type of game, especially in Monster Hunter. You wouldn't want that type of netcode. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't want everybody to just be like, well, I guess we just have to wait here for a split second, because that's usually what happens in rollback netcode when other people are playing. Is they'll notice that everybody just stops moving, but they can still move around, but mm-hmm. certain buttons don't work and other things like that, like their abilities just don't go off and stuff like that because they're having issues with the server. Yeah. The games as a service isn't really about that type of gameplay. It's about the fact that games are being released at full price, like Anthem, for example. Mm-hmm. They're released at full price. I buy it. I buy a physical copy of it. But I can only play it if I sign up to I sign in to their servers. It can be mm-hmm. free, it can be a subscription or whatever. But if 90% of the game is locked behind online play, where you have to be connected to a server to play it, then it's bad. So, for example, it would be bad if PlayStation Now, when you subscribe to it, you'd have to go to each individual game. We'll pick Grand Theft Auto 3, like the PS2 version of Grand Theft Auto 3. And I had to buy Grand Theft Auto 3 on PS Now. And then I could only play it when I'm logged onto the server. So if I pulled my Ethernet cable and went to the PlayStation Now app, it wouldn't let me play because I didn't log on. It's mm-hmm. not the same. It's like I said with Overwatch, right? You can probably play the training mode because you don't need to log. Actually, no, you need to log in to Overwatch to play it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it automatically does it when you press X, but you can't even get to the main menu without the servers properly being synced to your computer.
And the thing that's interesting about this is because more and more services are starting to do offline modes. I think Steam has an offline mode, but it doesn't work for every game. I think certain games will let you, if your internet doesn't work and you want to play a game that you bought off of Steam, if it's a certain type of game, as long as it's installed in your computer, you could play it, but you won't get updates, whatever.
Well, yeah, you wouldn't get updates, you wouldn't get, online services, for example, you buy a Halo Anniversary mm-hmm. Collection, right? It's got a whole single-player campaign that you can play mm-hmm. offline, but you can't do co-op.
But normally, if you open up a game you purchase off Steam, if Steam's not open, it opens and checks for updates and stuff like that. Hmm. But it's gotten better to where the point where if your internet goes out, you could still play your games that you have installed. But
the Steam client still loads because it plays the games through the Steam client. But this mm-hmm. client doesn't have online DRM or anything like that mm-hmm. that stops you from playing games that are installed on your computer. Mm-hmm. This is the core games that we are supposed to be talking about when it comes to games as a service are things like Overwatch or mm-hmm. League of Legends is another good example. Mm-hmm. If Riot decides to shut down the servers of League of Legends one day, mm-hmm. all those cosmetics that you bought, all of the you being able to just play the game, it's all gone. Mm-hmm. It's vaporware in a sense, right? Mm-hmm. As soon as the servers clock down, and the fraud aspect of it is the fact that we don't get compensated for that, right? That if you're going to shut down the server, either like there's the two options. It's either you give us the server data so we can create our own private servers to continue on, very similar to what WoW did with Classic WoW, but now they're re-releasing Classic WoW, right? But like that's the thing, is some people really liked old WoW. Some people, for whatever reason, really liked 1.0 Final Fantasy XIV, but you can't play that game. You can install it on your computer, but I can't log on unless I trick the game into thinking that my computer is a server, right? And that's the thing, is they don't give us the open source code to allow us to create servers to play these games after they shut down the servers. The other is they just refund us the money after Overwatch goes down. We get our $60 back. See, that wouldn't be fraud. But if they shut down the servers, don't give us access to creating the server, like to create a server, so the data to create a server, or refund us the money that we spent playing the game, then that's technically fraud, because I paid full price for this.
And until there's like a lawsuit about it, like, I don't think anything's going to be done about it.
But that's the same thing about copyright too. Like, me and you are very, very well versed in YouTube copyright and everything, but like copyrights. But like, that's the thing, is like the copyright holders will fight tooth and nail to never actually have a proper thing go to the courts, because as soon as there is an actual definable law, or a law has been changed to be more either inclusive or exclusive, depending upon how you want to look at it, right? Because there's always the opposite end, that someone could lose a fair use, right? And ultimately change the way that the game is played. Like, YouTube is allowed to make all these strict changes, not just because it's a private company, but also due to the fact that there's no laws that prohibit them from censoring, right? That, sorry, you can't be monetized because you said the word fuck in the first 30 seconds of your video, right? Like, the algorithm picks up on those things. And that's how innate the algorithm is, but technically, isn't that against free speech? Just because I want to say the F-bomb, that my video is now age restricted and other things, that I'm being censored just because I decided to use like one profane word.
It's funny. Boogie actually found out the timing of when you can drop an F-bomb and not get your video like a video demonetized or age restricted. If you passed 30 seconds to 2 minutes, like that window, and you don't drop an F-bomb, or pass that window and don't drop an F-bomb, you'll get age restricted. The newest episode I put up of Fire Emblem Warriors, I was surprised it got age restricted. That's the first time that's happened on my entire channel.
I've had age restricted things.
That's literally the first time, and I sometimes start videos with fuck. Like, it's funny. Like, it's so picky. Like
it is. Well, that's the thing. It's a learning computer.
Oh, when Nintendo was being very like hard nosed about who could make money off videos, I'd upload a Nintendo game, and maybe 2 or 3 of the videos a week, like I was back when I was uploading 1 a day, would get claimed, and the rest would be fine. They'd all still say, Yoshi's Island part whatever, or Mario RPG part whatever. The name of the game is in there, but for some reason the bot does not care about 2 or 3 of the videos, but the rest of them they do.
Well, it's probably like, well, it's the same thing when it ever comes to this type of stuff. It's the luck of the draw that when you were uploading, it just thought, all right, I'll check this video out for 30 seconds. It figures out what it's about. It reads the title. It reads the tags. It's probably programmed to watch the first 30 seconds of the video, but it just deems what it thinks. Because I've noticed that the algorithm is much better now than it was. Trying to go through that stuff. And like, there's always systematic purges that happen every once in a while. Like, we always hear about it in the YouTube sphere, but like, that's the thing, is like every once in a while they upgrade the algorithm, and then it goes out onto YouTube and just it claims so many things. But like, not to veer too much off topic, but like, these are things that these games as services are starting to do, like with muddied laws and not proper lawsuits that ever actually talk about these things and whether free speech or rights of ownership and other things like that they're not really, I guess, it's so gray. It's a gray area. So the easiest way is that they let the company decide. The law doesn't decide, the company decides. And that sucks because that means that the law isn't in our favor. It's technically not in their favor either, but because they're providing the service, they're the ones that get to dictate what we consume, right? Mm-hmm. So if I buy $400 worth of loot boxes from Blizzard and I don't get anything, and then they decide to shut down Overwatch, they're not going to give me that $400 back. They're going to say, oh, well, you shouldn't have spent $400 because like our quote unquote terms of service say this or that. But a lot of the times the term of service just says straight up, we have the right to terminate this service at any time. Mm-hmm. And that's so vague, right? Like it's super vague because they could easily just get people to buy the game and then immediately shut down the servers, right? Like Fallout 76 could have fallen into that category, but you know, because Bethesda is Bethesda, they try their best to salvage their garbage.
I've actually heard that they've been making some major improvements to that game. So, but it's about time, but
it's too late. It's way too late, especially in how games are in the market nowadays. I have no interest in going back to Fallout 76. Yeah, maybe if I find it in a bargain bin at $5 and then I log on for like 5 minutes just to sort of see, but the core value of the game just isn't there, right? Mm-hmm. And like a game that I watched you pick up, and I did mention this to you before when we were thinking about talking about this topic, is a game that I really liked on the 360. It was one of like my third or fourth games on the Xbox 360 was Chromehounds. There is a game as a service. There was a single player campaign, but it was just there mostly as like a big tutorial about how to operate certain types of mechs. There was defense mechs, commanders, there was scouts, there was offensive mechs, like that type of stuff.
Sorry, what game is this?
Chromehounds.
Oh, Chromehounds, yeah.
Chromehounds.
I was told afterwards after I bought it that you can't play it anymore.
You can't play it. Like, well, you can play the single player stuff. But you can't play online. You can't get any of the parts, so you can't build your own mech, which was like its selling point, was the fact that you could go online, get currency, build and construct your own mech. Can't do that. Sorry, it's pre-made mechs, a short story mode that is, like I said, designed as a tutorial to actually play the online component. On paper, it was a really interesting concept. There were 3 factions, and you and your group, or like, you know, whether it's a guild or I think they called them factions, you could join one of the factions and then you could go out on missions on, I think it was 4v4, or maybe it was 6v6. I can't actually remember. It's been so long since I played it. And you would fight for supremacy to take over the map. It was it was like an actual mech risk game, right?
Interesting.
So you would join your faction, and then you would play through it, and then I think it was every 2 weeks, it would reset. So then you could change factions if you want. You could stay with one faction, and then you could try your best to win, right? To take over. And if you won, you got a crap ton of money. You got unique mech parts that allowed you to make stronger, more powerful mechs. So it was incentivizing you to play online.
I would love to play that. It's just too bad you can't now.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is because the game shelf life, it wasn't marketed very well. It was sort of released under the radar, and it was very clunky. It was one of those ones where you had to actually spend a little time to create proper mechs, and it's the same thing that Armored Core has, right? Is some people love the customization of Armored Core and other people hate it because it's so finite and detailed that, like, just because this little tiny reservoir on my shoulder of my mech is like 8 degrees tilted this way, that now my mech is like lopsided and it can't do half of its moves because I didn't angle that piece properly on its shoulder. And it doesn't look like it would actually cause any problems, but it does. And like that was sort of the big problem with Chromehounds, was that it did go too heavy into the mech building aspect, where, you know, weight class and everything was very important. to creating a mech that actually worked. And it fell off, and then nobody really played it because a lot of people didn't want to spend the time to do that. So they just shut down the servers. And now, if you bought that game at $60, now I have a 10% game that's a brick, and I just spent $60 on that.
Yeah.
And I didn't get any compensation for that.
The other game that reminds me of that is Mag. Mag is still being sold in stores for at least $5 to $10 or something. I see it, and you cannot play that game. There's nothing you can buy it, and you can put the disc in your PS3, but you can't connect to the server, and that game is online only, so you can't play it. So it's just it's just
you are virtually buying a brick. You're just I went to the store and I bought a doorstop.
The only reason to buy Mag now is for collector's value, and there's no real collector's value in that game.
No, because there's thousands of copies of it just sitting in bargain bins at Walmart.
Yeah. Another good example is two games that I was really into early on when I got a PS3, and I've kind of faded away, were Warhawk and Starhawk.
Okay, I didn't play those personally, but I know what you're speaking.
They were kind of the battle royales we have today, but less of the looting and building and stuff, and more of, here's a giant map, let's drop you in here, and then go have fun, essentially. Go firefight and whatnot with people. And the thing is that those games are all online, and I think one of them is shut down, and the other one is slated to be shut down. So, that's just another example of a game. Now, those games I got cheap anyways. I think I paid $10 for one of them, new. So they were already old by the time I got them, and the servers for those games lasted a hell of a long time, longer than Mag did. But it's still the same thing. Servers are shut down. There's no way to play that game.
Yeah, and there is also the alternate aspect of a game that evolves over time, right? There are a lot of games nowadays that their first release is the main game, and then it has a bunch of DLC, and then 2 years later, it gets a rebundle, or it gets a relaunch, and then you can either buy it again, or it's at a cheaper value than the original game plus its DLC. Like Final Fantasy XV is a good example of this. I bought that game at $69.99. I spent, the $90 with tax and everything, Canadian, obviously, to buy that. Then I bought the season pass, which was another $30+. So I paid $120 for that. Okay? So I paid $120 to have the season pass and 15. So I was like, this is going to extend the life of this game. It's going to be great. Then, about a year and a half later, they released the Royal Edition, which has new content, which it had at the end of the game, right? It had an entirely new portion of the game at the end, and new cutscenes, new boss battles, and everything, plus all the DLC for $50. So it had new content plus the DLC for $50. So cut what I just paid, about $120 for all of that, cut that in half, and they got more. But I could spend another $30 to upgrade my existing Day 1 edition of Final Fantasy XV to get that additional content from the Royal Edition. So that means at the end of the day, I spent $150 on Final Fantasy XV, whereas now, anybody after me, if I just waited a year and a half, I could have spent a third of the money that I spent on that game. Right?
And that happens with a lot of games.
That happens with a lot of games, but this is the thing, is this is why DLC is starting to become a service type of thing. Yes, it extends the longevity of the game, but once you're starting to rip off the consumer, right? Maybe if I was a day one purchaser, why couldn't I just have the Royal Edition stuff for free? Because I did spend more money than the person that just waited a year and a half, right? But no, they want money, so they charge you for that. And hell, Episode Arden came out recently, and there's another $20. if I wanted to play it, which fortunately I kind of don't now.
So there's another thing with that that I should mention. So some games, when they did their Game of the Year editions back in the day, you would get a separate disc with the DLC or it would be included on the main disc. That's happening less. Now when you buy a Game of the Year edition, it's just the old game and they put a DLC code in the thing. Mm-hmm. So you still have to use a code to download it. Well, the advantage of, say, Skyrim Game of the Year edition for PS3, my brother bought it. If I have regular Skyrim, I just have to install the other disc and I get all the content. It doesn't check for an account or anything like that. Yeah. But with the DLC code, you use it, it's used.
Yeah. Well, that's I understand the reason why that was implemented. Yeah. And I think it's a smart move because, yes, game developers were getting ripped off by the used market. So I'm not completely for it. But at the same time, I do understand that you don't, I buy the Game of the Year edition or whatever, and I use my DLC code, then I go and trade it in. Then the next person can just come and give no money to the developer. As someone that worked in a game store, used games were a huge profit margin for us. Someone would trade in a game for $5, and then we mark it up to $30. That's just how that business model works. Mm-hmm. And so that's that's $25 worth of profit. That's you're marking up what you paid, almost 300% the value. Mm. So it's beneficial to sell used games. So their way of combating that was to have these DLC codes, and instead of it being on the disc, it was a download. So then they could still at least siphon a little bit of money. The developer could still get some of that money back from a used sale. So that's why I'm not really mad about that in particular.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that I don't like, however, is if I buy a new game 3 or 4 years from now and I type in the DLC code and it's expired.
That happened with when I bought Itadaki Street. There was a code in there for an extra map, and doesn't work because it expired a couple months before I got the game. It was a brand new shrink-wrapped game. It was still in the cellophane, but because that code expired, I can't use it.
Yeah,
which makes no sense.
This is Nintendo related, actually. Mm-hmm. So I bought Breath of the Wild on Wii U because I didn't have enough money for the Switch at the time. I actually didn't have a job at that point, but I was well, I still want to play it, so I bought that and I played it. However, I decided once I got a Switch that eventually I would pick it up on the Switch because it is one of the premier Switch titles, right? And I do want to support the game because I really, really love the game and everything like that. So I bought it. However, because it's past a year since it's been out, I can't get the gold coins from the Nintendo shop for it. They have expired. Even though I bought the game brand new, I didn't buy it used. I bought a brand new copy of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. But because it's more than a year old, all those coins, they don't exist. Now, the coins don't really provide anything too great, but I mean, hell, even the idea that the coins expire is ridiculous.
Yeah.
That type of stuff. Because that makes these games games as a service, right? It's yeah, you bought the game, but you better, if you want to use those coins, you got to pay up more. You got to pay us to do stuff.
Yeah. Also, if you get a used game and someone was smart enough to get the coins, you don't get them. But if they do and it hasn't expired, you'll still get them.
You'll still get them. But yeah, that's just because someone didn't register. But that's a 50-50 chance that somebody hasn't done that. But if I register those coins, I bought a brand new game, and the feature about getting coins for a brand new game doesn't apply anymore.
Yeah.
So I didn't get and I know I'm arguing because it's probably 44 gold coin, which translates to about 44 cents or something like that. I know it's pittance to argue that. But just imagine that, you buy these games later, or you buy them, in a bargain bin, and you don't get to buy you don't get the benefit of buying a new copy of something for being that, the person that bought something new.
And the thing, too, is that I've bought games using the gold coins, because I got my copy of Plague Rogue Plague Road, sorry, I bought with coins because it was on sale for, I don't know, like $2 or something, and I used 200 coins and I got it for free.
Yeah, I got Child of Light, Game of the Year edition or whatever, completely free because of the coins that I have.
So there is something I want to mention because this has to do with a new game I recently got. This is Dragon Marked for Death. This is a new game from one of my new favorite game creators, Inti Creates. They're fighting for Capcom for my top spot because they make a lot of great games.
Yeah.
Also, they developed a lot of stuff for Capcom. So
isn't that game that split into 2 character packs?
Yes. So when this game originally came out digitally, it has 4 characters you can play as that are on the back there. Yeah. So you could, when the game first came out digitally, you could either pay a version that came with two characters, like one that came with like the Empress and the Shinobi, or one that came with the Warrior and the Witch, or you could buy the pack that came with both of them. The physical edition comes with all the characters.
Comes with all.
So like whatever. But I just thought it was really dumb when they released the game that they split it up like that and said,
half and
you
half.
want the whole game, you got to buy, another thing. So
yeah, and that was a problem with Fire Emblem when Fire Emblem Fates came out, right? Where it was Fates, where you had Birthright and then you had Conquest, and then to get the quote unquote true ending, you had to if you bought both copies, you would get it for free. But if you didn't buy both copies, you'd have to pay for Conquest, and you'd have to pay for the conjoint one called like Revelations. I can't remember what its name is, but it was one game that was split into 2 and then was given a full complete other version, digital only, by the way. It never got released physically, that actually pertained the actual true ending to the story. It felt so Asura's Wrath to me. That it hurt. Right?
What do you mean by that? By Asura's Wrath?
What happened with Asura's Wrath is you bought the game and you got a quote unquote ending, but it wasn't the real ending. Capcom in their this was during the dark ages of Capcom. I also have to point this out, like the mid 2000s to like the early 2010s, where they were just like packing things in and then removing them and then charging you to play it. Like there was the bonus episodes against Ryu and Akuma, but the actual ending of the game, at the end, when you beat Asura's Wrath, it pops up with this pop-up that says, if you want to know what truly happened, buy the extended ending for $20. It was like an advertisement. The ending was an advertisement.
Wait. Is there more levels?
Yeah, it was like complete boss battle, another look. Because you have to understand, Asura's Wrath is really just like a boss gauntlet game, where it's just harder and harder fights as you go up, and they get like. And I have to also point out, Asura's Wrath is an amazing game. It's really, really well shot. It's really cinematic. It's super cool. But just imagine you beat a game, and then the ending pops up. And the ending just cuts off, and there's like an ad for you to buy the true DLC ending.
I'd be pretty pissed off if that was me.
Yeah, and a lot of people were.
Yeah.
And so any copies of Asura's Wrath that you get, whether they're like if it's greatest hits or like there was another copy of it or whatever, they usually come with that DLC now. Like you don't usually have to pay for it anymore because of the huge controversy. But it's the same thing. It's like imagine having. Like, this is also another games as a service thing. Capcom did this, is with Street Fighter Cross Tekken. There were characters on that disc that were removed so they could charge you. Now, the characters weren't all complete, right? Like, I understand that they weren't all complete. They probably were in development, and they wanted to get the game out fast because of licensing and all types of other garbage. That they like legalese garbage or whatever, because that was the problem that happened with Marvel vs. Capcom, right? And it just like you realize that they're just sort of charging you. You're buying a game that has shit on it, but they're charging you to unlock it.
Yeah.
Right? And that's sort of the crux of where games of a service, like coming back to the full topic, is the fact that I buy a $60 game, but I only get 10% of it unless I am logged onto a server.
And I love Capcom's response to that when that came out, because I think it happened in MVC3 as well. They're like, well, it's to avoid having a big download after you bought it. It's like, well, then don't charge for it. It's already on the disc.
Yeah, it's already, yeah, just like, let us choose. Let us choose to download the gigantic file. Hell, I have put games into my PS4, and then I go to my download section, it's like 32 gigs. What? Why? What kind of day one patch requires me to download the full game onto the thing? It's because the actual disc is just it's a logon tool. Like Anthem, for example, it had a 72 gig day one patch because all the disc had, it did have the core components of the game, but it didn't actually have the actual game on it. Now, they'll say, and what BioWare stated was that, oh, it's because we don't want to have it, we want it loaded onto your PS4 or your Xbox One X or whatever, so it runs smoothly, right? So, and that means it installed it onto my hard drive. But instead of installing it from a disc, they made me download it. So that means I can't play Anthem online unless I plug it into the internet and download the game that should be on the $60, $70 disc I just bought to play it. And I think that's where things are starting to really explode, because we're starting to see that certain games are not being taken care of. Like, how long, like HOTS, like we'll just talk about Blizzard, right? Blizzard has been going through a lot of changes ever since Activision bought them. And, like, that has been a detriment to so many of the franchises. Like, for example, Diablo Immortal, which isn't even come out yet. It already has a shit ton of controversy that we don't need to go over here. But it is virtually a mobile game, a game as a service, that at any point, because of all this controversy, it comes out and hardly anybody plays it, if anybody did pre-purchase it or buy it at release, they're going to get shafted out of their $60 within a year. Right? If Overwatch wasn't as big as it is, and it is starting to slowly dip down in popularity as other games come out, or competitors come out. Like, I mean, Apex Legends is a good example too. It had this huge booming start, but now it's trickling down and it doesn't have the longevity that things like Fortnite and PUBG, which were pioneers of that genre, or that type of hero shooter, that is now just sort of, and even Battle Royale and other things like that. Like, it's not hitting the itch. Hell, Battleborn died on arrival. Anybody that decided that they wanted to play that, can you even play Battleborn online anymore?
You still can. They actually made it free to play.
Okay, well then that's good. But then they can shut down the service at any point, and then Battleborn's dead for good, right?
One point I wanted to make is more of this is going to be happening. Like, just for an example, I was talking to an employee at EB Games that I go to a lot and that I'm friendly with. We were talking about Cuphead and how Cuphead came to the Switch, and how a physical version of it will be coming, but the physical version is only going to come out when the next DLC is out for Cuphead. So stuff like this, where the full game is only on the physical version, is going to be happening more, I think. And
I don't mind that. Like, if they make it physical, if they actually have a physical version on there, then that's fine to me personally. It's when I open up the case and it's a DLC code. Like, for example, Final Fantasy X and X-2 was released on Switch recently. Final Fantasy X is on the cartridge, but you have to download Final Fantasy X too. Oh. So that's a download code, right? And if I buy that download code and maybe I lose my account, or, you know, it's 6-7 years from now and the Switch's online thing has been shut off, very similar to what happened with the Wii, and those digital games are just gone. Those things that I purchased, they're gone. It's in the wind. I now only have Final Fantasy X, even though I bought the game that says I have both. Hell, the Mega Man X collection did this shit as well.
Yeah, Mega Man and Legacy and Mega Man X Legacy collection did it too. Where the first collection of the Legacy collections, it says 1 and 2 are in it, but it says on the bottom of the box, that the second one is digital only, which they can totally fit it on these carts. Like, these Mega Man games aren't that big. Like, the biggest one is, out of all of those, is 8, because it was on a CD. So it's like, what, 600 megabytes? Like,
no, 7 was on a CD as well.
No, 7 was not. Mega Man 7?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mega Man X. I thought we were talking about the X collection.
No, but you know what, like, it's the same thing. Like, even, like, those...
Well, technically, 4, 5, and 6 of X were on CD as well. But
4,
not
5...
to the same... They were on CD-ROMs. They weren't on DVD.
Yeah, 4, 5, and 6 were on CDs, and then the X7 and X8 are on DVD. That one makes a little more sense, because I don't know how big Switch carts actually are. People speculated they're like SD cards, so who knows? I
mean, like, a game like Breath of the Wild is all on the cart, and that is, like, I mean, it's not, like, visually as impressive as something like Rage 2, right? Where, like, the graphics are crazy, but it has a cell shading, but that, like, you have to understand that the scope of Breath of the Wild, when you're standing on a cliff looking out into the distance, you can go to those places. You can use your binoculars and you can zoom in and you can pick out points on the map and go to them. It may take you 10, 15 minutes to walk there, or even longer. Sometimes it takes you half an hour to go. I did it once on stream. I went from one end to the other. And this is like the diagonal. I didn't just go from up top or from left to right. I went on the diagonal from one corner to the other, and it took me an hour and a half to walk it.
Dang.
And that's a big map, if you really think about it. So like that to be able to render that much, and this is without loading screens, right? I can walk from one end to the other. So, and yes, there's trickery on how it loads the game, but the whole map is viewable. Just certain parts of it are less rendered, so the system doesn't explode. Right? Whereas in some people, like for Skyrim, for example, it uses the same type of culling, but you can, if you have a more powerful PC, load the entire map in its full detail from the Xbox version of it. You can load the entire thing. You can force the game to load the entire thing, even though your Xbox probably will cry out in horror as it tries to load that much information. But like, that's the thing, is like, that information is on the disc. It is designed to be there. And yes, like I said, there's always trickery that's involved, where they copy and paste certain textures. They make it easier that the topography isn't as big or vast in gigabyte space as in whatever. But I look at the game when it's on the SD card, and there's about 30 gigs worth of information on my Switch, and it had maybe one update, and it was a very short and quick update.
Yeah. Actually, I remember Breath of the Wild for Wii U was one of the few games that had to install on the Wii U, and it took up almost like a good chunk of the space. I remember.
Same thing with Fatal Frame, the Black Maiden.
Well, we can't get Fatal Frame physically here. Like,
and that's the thing, is like, there's all these Switch remakes, and I keep saying this, we always talk about this, I know, but seriously, you're re-releasing so many Wii U titles physically on the Switch. Please make that Fatal Frame an actual cart. Like, it would be great to have it on the Switch. It would still work. You could still do
I think the only reason it came out the way it did here was because there was enough fans who were going to buy it, but it's...
Well, no, that isn't actually the reason. The reason actually had to do with the controversy surrounding it. The girls are scantily clad or whatever, because they had DLC where you could have them in bikinis, and there was this wet mechanic, whereas the more wet the character got, like physically, not sexually, it like physically got wet. She, like, the ghost could affect her more and do more damage and other things like that, and it would change her clothing. Like, it actually had wet mechanics, like Senran Kagura, But this was during that awkward time where a lot of people were getting outraged over, like, sexual content being in games, and the Japanese, the guys that created Fatal Frame just straight out said, we can't sell in the American market because there's just going to be too much controversy surrounding this game. But there was enough public outcry saying we do want it here in America. So they're like, well, we can give you a digital copy of it.
Yeah.
Hell,
but
one of my favorite DOA
copy.
characters was in it, too.
Yeah.
Like, Ayane was in Fatal Frame, Made in the
Yeah.
Blackwater, as a DLC character, but we didn't get that DLC character because, well, people are...
Well, and the funny thing is, Europe got it physically. Like, they got it physically, but we didn't. So, I think it also is because, like, I think the thing, too, if you think about survival horror games, unless you're a hardcore survival horror person, you probably won't pick Fatal Frame as your first one. Like, let me put it that way. You'll pick a Resident Evil or maybe a Silent Hill. Or these days, probably something like an Amnesia or a Slender or something like that. You know, like, I could see why that could be another reason why they wouldn't make a physical version of it, because who's going to buy it? Only the freaks who like those games. Because I don't know how well the other Fatal Frames games sold. They kept making sequels of it.
Fatal Frame 1, 2, and 3 are one of the highlights of the PS2. Like, a lot of people remember the Fatal Frames, right? It's sort of like, not a lot of people remember Silent Hill, but man, do they remember Silent Hill 2, right? There's just something about it. Like, the first Fatal Frame didn't sell very well here, but Fatal Frame 2 did. The problem with the re-releasing of the Fatal Frame series, Fatal Frame 2, I think it had some song in it, like the ending theme was like licensed and published to somebody else, so the distribution rights of it.
You can get it still on PSN though, because I have it, I own it actually on there.
But that's that's one of the only ways you can get it digitally. Whereas in Fatal Frame 1 and 3 had greatest hits versions of them, but the most popular one, which was Fatal Frame 2, didn't get a greatest hits for some strange reason.
That's actually another great like segue into this. Mega Man Legends wasn't available on PSN for a long time, and it was because of in North America, because there was a issue with some of the voice actors. Just long story short, one of the voice actors in the game was a convicted pedophile, so that kind of made it difficult to release the game. For a long time. Also, the original game's code had a lot of references to like real advertisements and stuff. The thing is about copyright in Japan's different than it works for us, so...
Well, you have to understand, when a game is published here in America, they take American copyright into effect. It's not Japanese copyrights that are being infringed. It's American copyrights that could be infringed by the release and publication.
And that's why myself and a lot of people speculate that Mega Man Legends, when it finally did, Legends 1, 2, and Tron Bomb, when they finally did come to PlayStation Network, they're more expensive than a normal PlayStation 1 Classic game. Like, the PlayStation 1 Classics you buy off the PSN. I can't believe I have to say that now because there's a PlayStation Classic. It's so confusing. But yeah, like Mega Man Legends is $9.99 when most PlayStation 1 classics are like $4.99.
But that's the thing, is like, since we're talking about digital only games or digital classics and other things like that, when a store goes down, like when the Wii Shop channel went down on the original Wii, a lot of certain things, like when Marvel vs. Capcom, when Marvel or Capcom lost the license for a while for actually selling the game, they actually removed Marvel vs. Capcom 2 from the Xbox 360 store, from the marketplace.
I was going to mention that because licensing is another thing. Like,
because like I downloaded it, I bought it, so I got to download it.
Me too. Like I still have my download of it.
I still have my download of it. However, if your 360 bums out or your hard drive fails, you can't download it again. Yeah, that was
another game I have on 360 digitally that you can't get anymore. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, which is a great beat 'em up. It's just a shame that the licensing got messed up on that and you can't download it anymore.
But normally we should be given a reimbursement for that, right? If they remove it from the store, they should pay us our money back because we can't get it. That's the reason why we buy physical versions of things. Is so when the internet eventually either gets censored or nuclear bombs drop and explode, I may still be able to play my Switch games, right?
Yeah. An opposite issue happened to me when I started getting into JoJo's. Capcom made the original JoJo's fighting arcade game. And yes, it has a version on the Dreamcast and the PlayStation 1, but they made an HD re-release when the anime started coming out, like the TV anime of JoJo's, for PS3 and Xbox 360. But Capcom lost the rights to produce JoJo games to CyberConnect 2. So they had to remove JoJo's Bizarre Adventure HD Battle off of the PSN and Xbox 360 stores. But the other games that CyberConnect made, you can still get. Mm-hmm. But like, that's another thing that sucks, because I want to play that game, but the only way for me to play the HD version of the game is to download it dubiously and use an emulator, which, what's the point? I'd like to play it online.
And we've talked about emulation, right? Like the idea that some of these things, that's just the only way that you can get it. And it's not just the fact that physical copies become incredibly rare and they become very expensive as used collector's items. It's just the fact that, you know, like with all this digitization that has been happening, right? That we are now getting to a point where if you don't have an internet connection, you don't have like a proper download speed or other things like that, you don't get access to a vast gaming library if you bought things digitally. Like, I look over at my PlayStation 4 and I have bought digital games, but am I supposed to think that 10 years from now I'm not going to have any access to all that? That did I just buy a digital copy that is now just, it's like I said, it's vaporware. It just it now no longer exists in this plane. Yeah. Though the files are probably still on some server somewhere, right? Like, it's not like they delete the games. It's not like what happened, you know, like with the earthquake in Japan where Kingdom Hearts got completely ruined because the server that it was stored on got completely trashed, right? Yeah. Like that type of stuff can happen, and I understand that aspect. But with digital copies of games being prevalent, I can't share a digital copy with you, right? I can take my physical copy of, we'll take this Alchemist game, right? I can give this to you and you can play it. Yeah. Right? But if I bought this digitally, I'd have to give you my account information, and then you could download it and play it that way.
Though I will say
that's a breach of security.
Though I will say services are getting better. Like Sony has the share play option where you can play a game that somebody else has, but it's the same idea. If you lend a game to somebody, they can't be playing it at the same time. Yeah. So like I didn't have Spider-Man, and I was talking to my buddy Brad about him share playing Spider-Man to me when he was done playing it. We never did it, but that could be a way that I could play the game without having to buy, you know, my own copy. And one thing I'll say about Sony is that they've been pretty good about, there's always been this thing in the back of my head that eventually the PlayStation Network on PS3 is going to get shut down. Like, it's going to happen. Like to Sony's credit, they try to hold on, I guess, as long as they can with that, because they still make sales on the PS3. But like the PSP, they shut it down to where the point where the only way you can download digital PSP games now is have a PS3.
And the Vita. Surprisingly enough, you can still download a lot of PSP games on the Vita.
That is true, yeah, or the PlayStation TV.
Or the PlayStation TV. It's
it's one of those things where like it's like the people are talking about the PS5 already, and just in the back of my head, I'm like, I wonder how long Sony's going to hold on to the PSN for PS3, because they might still be making a little bit of money off of it, but we know that they're looking to the future.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing, and this is why the difference between PlayStation and Xbox versus Nintendo is an interesting thing, because the PS3 and the Xbox 360, they actually had online accounts. Like, obviously the PS3 had free online capabilities where the Xbox 360 didn't, but you still had to create an account, and that account has persisted into the next generation. That your Xbox Live account persisted into the Xbox One.
Which is something Nintendo only got on within the last 3-4 years.
Yes, and that's the thing about Nintendo, is each one was linked specifically to the system. It wasn't linked to an account, it was linked to a system. So if they can provide a alternative, like just say that they do shut down the PS3's capabilities, but they open up a PS3 PS4 or PS5 download center where you're able to emulate or play those games because they are linked to your account. Whereas in a lot of the WiiWare games, they were never linked to anything. You just bought them and they were on the system. Yeah. They were locally owned. They were not digital. They weren't digitally linked to a physical account. So yes, the PSN for PS3 could go down, but I'm more optimistic that we would have it's an easier way of proving that you bought something on the PS3.
Like, I mean, eventually they're going to shut down the ability to play games online on the PS3. I know they're going to shut those servers down, but with you being able to make a PlayStation Network account as early as the PS3, there'll still be records that you bought those games. So yeah, the service might still work on the PS3 up until a certain point. The funny thing too about the Wii thing is with Virtual Console games specifically, the Wii U the Wii U eShop knows you bought your games because it tries to sell you the Wii U version of it for a discounted price. So technically,
but you had to link things together to make that work though. Yeah. It wasn't a real online component. It was more along the lines of like linking your Wii account, like the virtual me or whatever that was sort of linked to you, that was linked to the Wii, and if you could prove it by linking them together or transferring data from one to the other, it would provide discounts.
I think it'll still remember, it'll look at your hard drive or something on your Wii U and see if you've got Wii Virtual Console games downloaded on it. It'll offer you the upgrade for Wii U for $1.50 or something like that. Yeah. So they offer this upgrade thing where you can, which I've never done, which I might actually do if it means I can add a record of these games existing at some point.
But I don't think it will be the same when it comes to the Switch. Yeah. They're definitely distancing themselves from the Wii brand now. Mm-hmm. It's all steam ahead with the Switch. I am on that. I'm on that train too. I really feel that, the Wii had its moment in history. The Wii U was a catastrophic failure, and now we need to push forward. And if this is the new standard, if this is their new online service that they're providing, whether you agree with having to pay a price for getting almost nothing in return, that's a different debate for a different time. But it's not interconnected the same way that the PSN and Xbox Live are. Whereas in, like you said, they can shut down online play, but that doesn't mean that the PlayStation Network store servers are shut down. They exist in their own separate bubble.
Yeah. And a thing that was mentioned a little while ago is that Nintendo recently from their site removed Wii and Wii U from their list of products. So people are starting to think, well, maybe they'll shut down the Wii U service next. But at least with the Wii U, and I think with the 3DS before that, they introduced the eShop. So there's always a chance it could be connected. But the thing that I found is the Switch eShop and the 3DS eShop and the Wii U eShop, they're connected sort of, but they're not really connected.
They're not really connected.
You still had to make a new login. Even though it's connected to my eShop account, I still had to make a new login on my Switch to be able to use the Switch eShop. So it's a little confusing how they did it, because they got into this whole one account that connects everything too late.
Yeah, well, they didn't have the built-up infrastructure that Microsoft and Sony had with their services. They decided to forge ahead with their own path, which what Nintendo does all the time. And sometimes it's for great success, and other times it's not, right? And I like the fact that Nintendo does that, but there are certain things, I understand that you want the Switch to be a gaming console, but why the fuck is Netflix not on the Switch at this point?
It is, actually.
Is Netflix on the
I
Switch?
Think it is.
I thought
I know
Hulu,
YouTube is.
I thought Hulu was on the Switch, not
I know
Netflix.
YouTube is on the Switch.
I know YouTube is, but that just happened. That just happened a couple, not even a month
Netflix is on the
ago.
3DS and the Wii U. I would assume it's coming to the Switch eventually.
Yeah. But they even stated that they're we want it to be a gaming console, not a multimedia center. So there were, at the time when they made that claim, there was no talks with Netflix or anything. Like, I think the only streaming video service other than YouTube is Hulu that is on the Switch. And hell, me and you, sorry, we can't
even use. Well, technically, right? If you have like an American Apple ID and you buy an American Apple Points card,
like that, but those,
and
like,
then sign up for it,
I don't consider these workarounds like a common thing, right? Like people like an average user shouldn't have to go through that workaround to be able to access this content, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a personal opinion. I understand that some people will say, no, this will show people how to use tech properly. Waka, 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 whatever. It doesn't really matter. But an average consumer should be able to pick up their Switch and just access things. It shouldn't be locked behind countries. You shouldn't have to, though I do believe in VPNs and protecting your online privacy and stuff like that, still, we shouldn't have to go through this many hoops just to get certain things.
The nice thing I that I was told about, Chicago actually told me this, is if you have a Nintendo subscription, you get the NES games with the thing. You don't have to get another subscription, but you can make a European and a Japanese account, and you'll still get to play their region-specific games with your North American subscription.
Yeah, but it has to be a family subscription, right? It's not.
I don't
just,
think it. No. I don't think it does.
I actually know about this because you can buy family plans, right? And those.
Well, see, Jicado doesn't have a family subscription on his Switch, and he.
Are you sure? Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure because I asked him.
Because you have to link those accounts. Like, just say you make a Japanese account, like you make that account region locked to Japan. You have to link. That has to be a separate email to make that account, or you make a family plan, and then link the accounts together. Because that's how the family plan works, is you take multiple accounts and link them to one email address.
I think what it does is you make the Japanese account, you download the application for it, and when it pops up and says, who's playing, you pick the one that you've subscribed with the account, and it acts like it doesn't matter that you have
I see what you mean.
It technically tricks the system, but Nintendo's not slamming down on it, I guess, because people they don't fucking care about the games they're giving away for free. Which, by the way, Nintendo, make better free games for your series. Like, Sony and Microsoft are killing you at this.
Well, but they've had years of this type of service being created. This is why whenever somebody's like, Nintendo doesn't provide the same, but it's so baby. It's so baby compared to the others that we can't just say that, well, just copy them. No, they have to build infrastructure on the Switch for that. They have to write the code for that shit.
Yeah,
this isn't just it's not some magical universe where you can just be like, look at that business model and copy it. Because if you do that, then Sony can just sue them for stealing their version.
But they don't even have they don't even have Super Nintendo games on there. And the amount of code it would take to program to make Super Nintendo games function the same way as their NES free game service you get with your subscription literally would take no time. I could
you can say that because obviously we have emulators and stuff like that. They could easily just use Zed's NES and then they can emulate every Nintendo.
That's not what I mean, though.
But you also have to incorporate the fact that each one of those games needs to be properly licensed. They need to be properly published, and a lot of the times, because of certain things, they need to provide a space in which people can download those games. There are so many extra factors than just a small little change in the code to make it possible.
But if they're going to license games,
that need
if they're going to license new NES games from third parties, why don't they just license the first party ones they have for the Super Nintendo? It would cost the same amount.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's but that's what the NES Classic and the NES and the Super Nintendo Classic are for. Why do it again when you can get gamers to go out and buy games on $60 to $70 or $100 plastic systems that have that emulation on them already?
Then why did they even bother doing the NES one if you can go buy an NES Classic?
Just because they did that because they wanted to show that, we can give you something. We'll give you something for signing on to the online. They just gave you an NES Classic. That's just a download app. That's all it is. You load that up, and it has a very similar interface to the NES Classic.
Not nearly as many features, which I wish they would fix, but whatever.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's like, if they give you NES Classic Lite, then it makes you say, well, maybe I'll go out and buy the NES Classic so I can get some of the games that aren't being offered. Or maybe because I like all these 8-bit classics, maybe I'll buy a SNES Classic. It's designed to entice you to buy more. This is a company. They're trying to make money, man. Like, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but this is the same thing as games as a service, right? They're forcing you into buying into their garbage. It's not about making it good for you or making it easy and efficient. It's to maximize profit. So they dangle the carrot in front of you and make you chase after it, throwing more money at the carrot, hoping that it'll get just an inch closer so you can eat it. But that's just how it is. Like, we have to understand that Nintendo doesn't have us in their best interest. They have themselves in their best interest.
I just want to say, I don't like carrots.
Yeah. Delicious.
They don't improve your sight, though,
hey,
now
man,
that I wear glasses.
Where's my remake of Super Mario Land 2 on the GBA, huh? Well, not GBA, on the Game Boy. Just the original Game Boy. I want my carrot hat again. I want to see that fucking terrible PETA game about Mario ripping ears off of rabbits and sticking them on his head. I want that PETA game, man. You know,
man, if PETA's website ever goes down, you won't be able to play that game anymore.
I know,
Games
right?
as a service.
What the shit? Right? Games as a service. PETA is doing it. For Christ's sakes. My online hell, Newgrounds is a good example too. Yeah. There are games on there.
The interesting thing though about Newgrounds is that the way Flash was designed is that certain things aren't going to work. Like if a website goes down and you have a link to it in your thing, whatever, that won't work. But most stuff is self-contained, and now with like things like VLC Player, you can literally use VLC Player and like Media Player Classic to play like downloaded Flash games. Like what was it? Brandon and I were looking at, what was it? It was one of the first dating sims I ever played through. Was one off.
Was it that Gonguro girl?
Yeah, that one. It's not on Newgrounds anymore, but we found it because they had it backed up on another site, and there was a premium edition you could pay for, and that was the version that was backed up on the.
Oh, of course. Like why back up the light version?
Yeah, but yeah, I just remember, like, I was like, I wonder if this game still exists, and I found out that it was backed up somewhere. But again, like, that wasn't the creator who did that, or Newgrounds who did that. That was a third-party person who did that. And, like, PSO, for example, you can still play Phantasy Star online right now, because there are fan servers, but because the game is so popular, they do restrictions, like, you have to log in once a month, or your account gets deleted, and all this other stuff. So, like, these things do exist, but it's like if the code was provided with a lot of these games, then it would be much easier, which is what it should be. But I guess what we should say is, what would you prefer to have happened? Would you prefer to get a refund for your game once it closes down? Or would you prefer to have the option to have like an unofficial server to
I personally think you should have both. That if I choose that I know that I'm never going to play Chromehounds again, right? Mm-hmm. I should be allowed the option to get a refund, right? Mm-hmm. But I do like the idea of us getting open source code for the server data. Because if they're just shutting down the server, it's just a dead game. Like, it's not like somebody's going to go out and profit. And obviously, even if someone tries to, right? Like, we'll take what happened with the World of Warcraft Classic before the classic version comes out, like the actual classic version comes out. Mm-hmm. There was a very, very popular fan-run classic server for World of Warcraft. They got a cease and desist from Warcraft, from Blizzard, rightfully so, because this was a fan thing, because now we know they were going to create their own WoW Classic server. Right? So they wouldn't want to have to compete with a free version, and they still own the rights to World of Warcraft. It's not as if, when the game dies, the license disappears too, right? So if they did ever wanted to reboot the servers, or they wanted to re-release the game, then they have the right to say, hey guys, you need to stop. I completely understand that. Some people can be mad with that type of ideology. It's like, no, they shut it down. I paid for the game. I get it the way I want it. That's it. But it's better than it just sitting dead, right? It's better than that. If you just give it to, like, we have so many talented people in the gaming sphere nowadays that people are painstakingly recreating server packets and patching games that are far have been left in the dust by their developers. And yes, the simple and cheap way of them saying, you know what, you don't get your money back, but here's the code, so somebody with the talent and the time to create it can create a server so you can continue playing. I think that's a good middle ground.
Yeah.
Whereas in the refund, I understand the reason why they don't offer refunds is because that would be a huge price in market, right?
Plus, the thing about offering a refund option is, for something that has a subscription like WoW or 14, you bought the game, so you'd want to get refunded that. You bought DLC or whatever, refunded that. They could make the argument that, well, you paid for the playtime and you played during that playtime, so we're not going to refund that part.
Well, but that's the thing, is like, I don't expect my subscription, because my subscription goes into active development. The difference between WoW and Final Fantasy XIV compared to something like Overwatch, right? Where I paid $60 for Overwatch. And yes, I paid $60 for 14. However, my subscription, every 3 months, I get a content patch that offers new bosses, new dungeons, raid. Hell, the new raid that's coming out for Shadowbringers is Nier Automata related. It has Yoko Taro coming in and creating a 24-man raid for 14, right? So that means that he's taking his time to come in and create content for 14. So when I pay that money, I am paying for that content, that development time, to keep the server, not just to keep the servers running, but to create new content for me to play and experience. And then every 2 years, they release an expansion, which has a huge amount of new content. More story, changes in the battle system, you know, like completely and utter new ways. Hell, like Shadowbringers has Gunbreaker coming out, so you can finally be Squall from Final Fantasy VIII. You get a gun blade, and you get Dancer. Right? So they create a new class, 2 new classes, one's a tank, one's a ranged DPS, and this is the same thing that happens in WoW. I'm not versed in WoW, but they do the same type of thing. Now, I heard that Blizzard's patch times are not as consistent as 14, whereas in 14, every 3 months you usually get a patch, whereas in WoW, it's like, whenever we create it, and that can be kind of annoying. Probably for some people over in WoW, and that's the reason why there's this whole exodus coming over to 14 right now, because apparently Battle for Azeroth is just really bad. And I guess there's also the factor is that some people, when it comes to subscription-based systems, is when they do these overhauls to the battle system, for example, they usually take things away and they implement new things, or they revamp it to be more consistent or whatever, just to make it a better playing experience. But then 3 expansions later, some of those things that they removed come back. And this is WoW's problem, is they take stuff away and revamp it and say, this is the new way to play WoW. And then 3 expansions later, so like, remember that thing from Classic? We brought it back. Right? And instead of them creating new and interesting content, they're just recycling content. They're sort of cycling through things instead. And that's where the gray water, when it comes to a subscription-based fee, where he's just like, so I'm not paying you to recycle content. I'm paying you to make new content for me. Right? I don't want my subscription going into just you taking shit away and then giving it back to me later. You know, like, right. It's like, they drop the golden turd, and then they take the golden turd away, and then they return it to me after 3 expansions, but it's no longer gold, it's just a turd now. Right? And that's sort of the sort of back and forth that subscription-based fee services like that have to offer, right? Like, we hate when Netflix removes shit and then adds it back later. Or it just gets removed forever. Or it gets added forever. Hell, on Netflix, on Canadian Netflix right now, they just finally released that reboot.
Oh, God.
And you know what else I found on there? That live-action TMNT show. You know, the one with the female turtle? That's on Canadian Netflix now, too. So, like, every once in a while, they'll take those things away. Like, there was something I was looking for that I remember seeing, and I was like, I want to watch that. But it was gone. And then like, almost like 8-9 months later, it pops up in brand new again. Right? Yeah. So that's sort of where these types of subscription things can get kind of wonky. But like, that's the thing, is there's a little bit of difference when it comes to 14. Now, I feel that maybe because I bought the base game, so Realm Reborn, if they did shut down the servers, I should be reimbursed for ARR for that relaunch. But that's it. After that, I shouldn't for the expansions, because every time an expansion comes out, like, just say you decide to get into Shadowbringers. And I know you've already purchased a Realm Reborn and Heavensward and stuff like that, but if you buy the current expansion that's out on the market, so you buy a Realm Reborn, you get the 1 to 50, and then you buy Shadowbringers, by default, you get Heavensward and Stormblood with it.
Yeah. I was meaning to ask you, I think you've answered this question before, but I only have up to Stormblood. Can we still play together even if you have a newer expansion?
Yes, of course. You just can't access the content and the areas from Shadowbringers. So anything past 70, you can't play.
Gotcha.
Like, I can come back to your Stormblood areas and we can hang out and we can wander around. It's just, you wouldn't have access to Dancer or Gunbreaker like I would, because I have pre-ordered Shadowbringers. Right?
Yeah.
So it never limits the play. It limits the player and what they can do, but the overall experience, they're always adding. Like, for example, Blue Mage came out last patch. You don't need to have Stormblood at all for that. It is part of the core game experience. So if you bought a Realm Reborn and you bought the starter kit, then you would just have Blue Mage. But that only just came out like 6 months ago. So like, that's still cool that they're still providing a like content for the base game so people can experience it without having to buy the expansions until they really understand, do I want to play this for longer periods of time?
I feel like it's different with WoW, though, because from every time I hear from WoW, is what people say is they have to get the new expansion.
Oh, yeah, because anytime, like, just say I went and bought Battle for Azeroth, my character starts in Battle of Azeroth. So my character will have like a pre-level from this is like I said, this is from like tertiary information that I know, but instead of it being like, just say I bought Shadowbringers, I'd still have to pick up ARR, which you can get with the free trial. Then you you get a free trial, so you can download ARR pretty much for free, pay your subscription for it, which allows you access from level 35 onwards to 50. Then you buy Shadowbringers, you get all the expansions, but you still have to work your way through the expansions. So if you want to play Shadowbringers, you have to either buy a jump potion, which allows your character to jump forward in levels to that story moment where we have to, or you have to play from level 1 all the way to level 70, doing all the main scenario quests to then start Shadowbringers. So that's the most daunting thing about 14, is you have to work your way through it.
And that's the thing too that's different, because from what I understand, if you go buy a used copy of Heavensward, like obviously you'll still have to get a subscription and everything, but you can play Final Fantasy 14 right now. If you go buy a used old copy of World of Warcraft, you can't, from what I understand.
No, Legion, it doesn't matter.
You have to have the newest expansion or the game doesn't work. Is from what I understand. I don't know because I don't play it. But that's
because it's on the disc. You just put it in your PlayStation, or like normally PC, it's all digital now, so you just buy the complete edition and it comes with all of it, right?
Yeah.
But that's just sort of the choices that you make. Oh, hello, Kalina. I'll show. There she is. But that's the that's the thing is this is why I like 14, and this is why it's slowly becoming one of the top rated MMOs in its genre, because it has consistency. It doesn't like penalize you for coming in late. You get all of the content right out the gate, and you just have to work your way through it. And hell, I'm thinking about going through the Heavensward Stormblood content again, just to sort of refresh my memory on the story. And I realized, I'm like, man, there's a lot of crap I have to do to go through those expansions. And that's only tipping the iceberg of, that's just the main scenario. That's just the story. There's so many side content, other dungeons that aren't linked to the main scenario that I have to go through. And that's a lot of time. So with kind of worth its price now.
What I was going to say is, with Twitch's new feature that they have out for, they're supporting some kind of multi-stream thing where like
squad streams.
Yeah, squad stream. With that coming out, I've been thinking about doing like another like right now I stream 2 days a week, but I was thinking of like maybe once every couple of weeks or once a month doing like a squad stream of a game and just going for it. And 14 could work for that. Monster Hunter was one we all talked about because we know so many people who have Monster Hunter World, and one of the things that is kind of a pain in the ass sometimes about watching somebody who streams Monster Hunter World, I could be mining and somebody else could be fighting the monster. So with squad streaming, you can see everybody's perspective. So I think that's something that'd be neat. I'd like to try and do something like that where we all play a game and we just play through it. Like, and if you're thinking of going through Heavensward again, maybe I pick up my character who's level 15 and I could just it won't take too long to get there.
Yeah, I can get you to that point. We can unlock Red Mage for you, and you can go ham with that. But like, that's the thing. Like, obviously, like I said, it's a time investment, and that really depends upon you, right? It's how much you want to invest. But this is why and I understand that because I'm a big Zelda fan. You know, I'm a big Zelda fan, and I'm a big Final Fantasy fan. The nostalgia goggles, the fanboy goggles are in full fog at this point when it comes to this stuff. And when I do talk about it, I do understand that I give it some slack when it comes to certain things that they've done when it comes to Square Enix, for example. But it's not in the same vein as like something like Chrome Hounds or Overwatch. Whereas yes, Blizzard gives me a free account to play Overwatch. I just buy the game and now they update it. I get new characters every once in a while. But hell, just like Heroes of the Storm, after this fiscal year ends, there's going to be no more updates to Heroes of the Storm. They'll probably keep the servers up. But as that player base slowly drops only down to the people that really, really want to play it, they'll just say, you know what? It's time to cut our losses, because running servers are very expensive.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so they'll just say, you know what, Overwatch is now, they'll say it's quote unquote dead, even though there may still be thousands of people playing it every single day. And then, there goes your $60 game. And remember all those loot boxes you bought or earned to get that sweet Mercy skin? Sorry, too bad. It means nothing now. All that money's wasted.
Yeah.
So
I
mean, we're sort of going around in circles now, so I guess we should start thinking about wrapping this up.
I think we've said our piece on games as a service. The bottom line is that it needs to improve for future games. Because we've already lost games to the ether, and we're going to lose more if something isn't done.
Yeah, and and at least in the mobile sphere, especially in the mobile sphere, less as much on the consoles, even though it's starting to migrate over. When you see stuff like what happens with Mortal Kombat 11, you're just like, oh, I see what you're doing here. You're trying to implement mobile aspects and gacha mechanics to mainstream games. And this is why like loot boxes and like, you know, Star Wars and the Star Wars Battlefront was like a big issue. But like these are things that the mobile game sphere is the scariest place, because if Google decides that it doesn't want to support a game anymore and just removes it from the store, bye-bye, you can never connect again.
The one good thing...
It just effectively kills games whenever it feels like it, and that's bad.
The one good thing to come out of Battlefront 2 getting all that backlash is Disney decided to make new servers for the original Battlefront 2 on PC. So you can't, that's a example of a company making a new server for an old game. So if you own Battlefront 2 on PC, whether it be Steam or a disc copy or whatever, there's online servers for it right now. That
they've rebooted those servers. So this is the sad thing, right? Is like that means that code and all that information, that infrastructure that was there to begin with, is still in a vault somewhere. It's still on a PC somewhere. Right? Like maybe they did have to recreate the code because it was deleted or the servers were dead or something like that, or whatever the case may be. But if they were to provide us that code and let the fans deal with it, and if Disney wants to reboot those servers, they can put cease and desist because it is their product. It is when they sell you the copy, they don't want some fan site. They want you to log onto their official servers. Hell, Warcraft 3 just got a patch not too long ago. And like, how old is Warcraft 3 at this point?
Yeah.
Right? You know, and like those types of things they're interesting retrospects that I feel that, yeah, some people will be pissed, and I guess I would be pissed too, but like it's the same thing. I would love to play Final Fantasy XIV 1.0 again. The first iteration of 14, before all of the new stuff, and they killed it with that. Like, I would like to experience and let other people experience it, because there are people that play 14 that didn't go through the shit that I had to play 14 back in the day. Right? And to give a glimpse into that past, whether it's via fans or by them releasing a classic version of that game, it could be very interesting. Hell, to even integrate a classic version of 14 into the new version so you can bring your character over from 14, from 1.0. Because like, I have a 1.0 character. I have that character that allows me to like, that has certain story bits that are exclusive to me because I was a 1.0 player. I have my name in the credits in A Realm Reborn because like that's how much they cared about their fans, but I can't play 1.0 anymore.
Can you still see your character on the login screen, or?
Oh yeah, I can. Like, my character, in all intents and purposes, is the character that I played in 1.0. It's just, it was migrated over to the Realm Reborn servers.
Okay.
Right? It's just the fact that I can't go back to that game and play it. Like, I have the case next door, but like, I can't play that version of the game anymore, because anybody that plays Final Fantasy XIV starts in A Realm Reborn. They don't start in 1.0 like I did. Right? They start in 2.0, and then they go from there.
Right.
So that's sort of where it is that, like, wouldn't it be great if Square just either released the server data so fans could recreate it, and then we could just experience it as, like, you know, a fan-based version of the game, or they released their own versions, like you said, like Disney did with Battlefront 2, and just made it that way, right? Yeah. That you could experience. And then, because it's officially run, you could have it integrate into A Realm Reborn, and people could start the story where it originally started, before Bahamut nuked the fucking planet. You know, like, it's just, those are very interesting little aspects of just gaming culture that are lost to the ether when these games as a service just disappear. When you can't play it any longer, then that piece of gaming history just becomes a memory. It doesn't become like an actual thing that someone can experience. There are, like I said, it's sort of like, we have to start thinking of the idea that there are certain people that grow up as the PS4 as their first gaming console.
Yeah.
They don't know what a Super Nintendo is. They play the Switch and there are callbacks, but it's the same thing that I said about Final Fantasy 15. I'm glad that anybody that picks up 15 now, 2 years after it was released, is now capable of just playing the whole thing. They didn't have to wait years to get the full gaming experience. They can just play the whole thing. And it's a 10 out of 10 now, but it wasn't back when it launched.
Yeah. And the other advantage, too, of that is, say somebody comes into something like Final Fantasy now with 15, well, a bunch of the old ones just got re-released. So, like, if they're like, oh, wait, there was all these other Final Fantasy games. Oh, yeah, right, I started with the 15th one. Of course there's going to be other.
But that's the thing. It's like now, with like the remake of 7 actually looking like an actual reality again. It's not just like, hey, look, we dangled the carrot and then just were radio silent about it for 4 years. 4 years, man. But like when I see an article where someone says, I haven't played Final Fantasy VII, and they write it there, but I'm interested in the remake. And you're just like, are you fucking serious? It's like, yeah, I just can't readily get my hands on a copy of Final Fantasy VII. It's written in the article. Are you fucking serious? It runs on your you can get Final Fantasy VII on your fucking like goddamn like Ubo or whatever, like your Roomba, your phone can have.
You can play it on your goddamn phone now.
You know, like you don't even need to emulate it. You can buy an official copy of Final Fantasy VII. So when you say that I'm gonna have an opinion about Final Fantasy VII without playing it and your reason for not playing is because it's hard to find, fuck off,
dude.
Like it's not,
dude. You let me in the know on something when you worked at a game store. You can buy new copies of Final Fantasy VII that were printed that year.
Yeah,
because not they 7. Still print
7.
them.
7 is not printed, but 8 and 9 are still being printed. You can still get PS1 Final Fantasy IX Greatest Hits. It is still being created and printed out by Square Enix. You can go onto the Square Enix store right now and buy a physical copy of the PS1 version of Final Fantasy IX. There is no excuse. You know, like, it's not as if these games haven't been re-released or anything to it. But, like, 8 is the only exception because poor old 8 was also one of the victims to the earthquake that happened to Kingdom Hearts 1. They lost the original coding. That's why there isn't an HD version of it. It's because they actually lost the original source code. The best they have is the PC version, and that one is riddled with bugs. They'd have to overhaul the game completely for it to be properly run and re-HDified in the same sense. They can't go back and get the original source code like they did with 7 and with 9 and then just upscale the graphics and the textures to their original things. But like, that's it. Like I said, we get off topic here and there, and we are sort of going around in a circle, but I guess we should start thinking of saying, so where do we go from here or what are we up to? We're not hitting onto the 4 hours of Kingdom Hearts yet.
Yeah.
We're hitting the 2 hour mark.
We said our piece about games as a service. I think we're good there. So, what are you working on, CJ?
I am currently not working on anything because I've been super, super sick.
Which is totally fair.
And like I said, the last couple of days have just been me. Oh gosh, I've been working solidly this past couple of days, so I really don't have anything that I'm tangibly working on right now. Most of my time is either spent at work or playing video games to unwind from work. So. Though I have been recording a lot more just because I was sick and I couldn't talk. I just decided to play a couple of games that I bought but I hadn't before. So I've been recording and gaining footage. I have a good backlog of footage of a lot of games now, which is really, really good that I can actually start using at some point when I do eventually want to talk about them. So that's sort of really what I've been up to these past little while. I force myself to just record everything. I don't do Let's Plays or anything like that, but I feel as if I record it, at least I have that footage, so when I do want to eventually, or I have a spark of an idea, I can go back quickly, get into it, and do it. Though I do want to get back into streaming, which is my biggest thing that I want to do now, which is stream more.
You know what's kind of surprising to me? I'm kind of surprised you haven't... Well, maybe not super surprised because they're long games, but you talk about Wild Arms a lot. I'm surprised you haven't started doing a series on Wild Arms.
Well, I'm actually going through those games. That's one of the series that I want to get a bunch of footage for.
Did I just spoil your whole thing?
Maybe. I didn't really want to talk about it because I want all those games played and finished before I actually announce a retrospective or anything like that. Now, when it comes to, if I were to do the retrospective with Wild Arms, I would tangibly go back and play them, but I wouldn't have to record it or feel the pressure of recording it. Right. I could just play it in a leisurely pace, or I can just go back to do certain things just to sort of refresh my mind on like gameplay and stuff like that. So when I do write the retrospective, I have concrete things that I remember. It's not just based off memory, it's based off of play. But what I was thinking, and this is just how I've been thinking a lot lately, and I'm like, how about I play through a game first? I record it all. I don't do any commentary, anything like that. I just play through it so I have the footage. Then when I do want to do a retrospective, then all it is just saying, you know what? All right, I'm just going to sit back. I'm going to play a little bit of Wild Arms 2 again, go through the story at a leisurely pace, write down notes and everything like that, then use my recorded footage as the basis for the video portion of the retrospective. And that's sort of how I'm looking at it. It does feel sometimes that it does defeat the purpose, but at least it lets me record at a leisurely pace rather than saying, shit, I gotta get the next retrospective out in a month and I have to force myself to play through Grandia 2, or not Grandia, or Wild Arms 2 or 3, or heaven forbid if I ever got to 5. 5 is I don't
Do you own all the Wild Arms now?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I got the last one at Anime North back in 2014, 2015. Yeah. Which was the remake of Wild Arms 1 on the PS2.
Oh, there was a remake. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've been preparing for things that are happening in the future, but now, obviously, you just recovered from being sick. So.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like I want to build a big catalog, and hell, my Twitch, the stuff that I'm doing on Twitch, I'm starting to download my VODs. Like for Breath of the Wild, I have all of my archive footage of Breath of the Wild that I streamed. Now, obviously, that has my commentary over it and has me interacting with chat, but I wouldn't use those clips in my videos unless I'm calling back to a joke or something that happened. Like when I got like nailed in the face by a block that I thought I was being clever with to catapult myself away from a shrine or something, right?
But that's something that Angry Joe does is he streams the games he's going to do reviews for. So when he cuts to something happening, you hear his commentary of the time it happened, but he'll use like the game music. Like I don't even use the original audio of my footage anymore. I just use like soundtrack stuff because I'm like
just the soundtrack of the game.
Because like if you're cutting around, it just sounds weird when you cut around. You're like, oh, here's part of the song, and then you cut and there's another part. Or you're like James Rolfe, where you literally like re-edit the song into sync it with the audio, and that's too much work. So I just cut the.
So then, what are you working on, big guy?
So like I mentioned, in the update video I did, I think it was last week or the week before, reviews are on hold for Anime North right now. However, my next review's footage is recorded. I have started the script, but the thing is, it's been so busy the last couple of weeks, I haven't had time to focus on it. It's probably not coming until June because
there's a lot going on at the end of the month.
There's a lot going on right now. I'm still working on stuff to get ready for Anime North. Anime North's happening this upcoming weekend. Not the long weekend, the one after it. May 24th to 26th, I think it is this year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't.
Yeah. Will this podcast be out before then?
Oh, it's going to be out before then. Yeah.
Okay.
This is coming out. Hopefully.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm like, whether or not, depending, there will either be like an annotation, or we'll just say, or it's already passed and we've already been there.
Yeah, it's the 24th to the 26th this year.
Okay.
In May, in Etobicoke, like it usually is. The panels were announced. We finally got information on them last month, like last minute, of course. The Let's Play and streaming panel is happening on Saturday this year at 4 p.m. In the Delta Hotel. I'll have all the information here because I don't have it right in front of me. And the 10th anniversary Abridged Series panel is happening Sunday at noon, which is kind of an odd time for that panel because usually it's on Friday.
That's like just before the thing's over, isn't it? Like,
well, the
like
con
4
officially
or 5
ends,
hours after the con ends.
Yeah, the con officially ends at 5 p.m. on Sunday. So,
yeah.
Kind of a weird place to put it, but whatever, it is what it is.
They never put it. They've put it in primetime slots before, and we've had full rooms, and it doesn't really matter. They always think that it's some stupid thing. I don't know.
Well, sometimes they put it at stupid times and we still fill the room. We've had it on a Sunday before and we
yeah, like at midnight. Yeah. Well, no, we've had a Saturday at or technically Sunday at midnight, right? And there's still people that show like full rooms.
People care enough to go see this shit. So yeah, I'm working on stuff for all these things, for the panels and whatnot. I also have a couple of projects that I can't talk about during this that are going to be worked on during, before, after, whatever, for the con. So that stuff's happening. I have, this will be coming out even for Patreons after I've already uploaded it. I finished my neutral run of Undertale. So if you guys want to watch the full thing, that's done. I'm not going to get to Pacifist, which is going to be my next run, for a while, because I want to play other stuff. Also, because I hear Pacifist is kind of difficult. So, and I hear Genocide's also pretty difficult, so I'm going to do
Actually, Genocide's pretty easy until, like, there's only, like, 3 times the game gets really hard.
I heard the game gets really hard at Sands, and that's where it basically
I'd say there's a fight against Undyne that you have to, like, she has got, like, sort of a final form sort of thing that you don't actually fight like you did in the original. That's pretty darn hard, too.
Oh, okay. So, I'm doing the way people usually do it. Neutral, all first runs of the game are neutral, from what I understand. And then I'm going to try doing Pacifist and then Genocide. So I finished a neutral run, but I'm taking a break. I might, Brandon and I, Vegeta396, might come back to do Chapter 1 of Deltarune. We haven't decided yet, because I just finished Undertale. So we might want to give it a thing. He wants to do a co-op with me. We still haven't figured out what we're going to co-op, but that's going to happen at some point. You and I will get back on the hop with Resident Evil 2 Remake. Obviously, you were sick, so we couldn't do it the last month, and I didn't plan for us to do it last month anyways, because I had so much shit I was doing.
Yeah.
But you and I are going to get back to that eventually, and I'll hopefully finish the Leon campaign soon.
Well, what we sort of discussed in private, and I think we can talk about it here.
Yeah, we can talk
we
about
will
it
be
now.
we will be doing Claire as well. But I will play through Claire, and because I've been guiding play through a lot of it. Then it will be a little bit faster because I already know how Claire's campaign works. I know how to defeat the bosses and everything like that. So it'll be a faster experience. We'll just call it a faster experience.
Yeah.
Whereas I could probably get through most of that game, in 2 sessions because I know how it works.
Yeah. And in terms of other stuff, Mario and Luigi, I'm working on it. There's a puzzle that I need to figure out how it works or how to get through it quickly. So that's going to be something that's coming. I do plan to finish that game this year. And I have a Let's Play I'm going to start probably after Mario and Luigi is done. That's going to be a throwback to another one I did. So
is it Pokemon Emerald. Pokemon Emerald. Never gonna live it down.
It might be
Never
Pokemon Emerald.
Live it down.
It might be Pokemon Emerald. We'll see.
Finish it.
But yeah, it will be happening. As well as I don't know if anybody knows, I do now own Paper Mario 1000-Year Door.
Yay!
Probably not going to do another Mario RPG for a while, because I did Mario RPG last year for 16-bit winter. I obviously did Mario and Luigi this year, and it's going into overtime over 16-bit winter. So,
1000-Year Door is pretty linear, though. It's not. There's not a lot of like extra stuff, and there isn't crazy silly puzzles. So you could probably get through it relatively quickly. Very similar to how you did Paper Mario. It's very linear, like Paper Mario.
I might not do that one for a couple of years. Like, I might give it some time, just because...
When YouTube no longer exists, and we upload the Let's Plays to your mind.
Oh my god, don't talk about VR mind shit. But yeah, that's also something on the pipeline. Obviously, more episodes of the podcast. I do have more people lined up, including one YouTuber who's is fairly successful YouTuber that I'm going to be getting on probably in the summertime because they're busy right now. But yeah, there's going to be more stuff for this coming. And in just general, like, other things I decide to do, like random stuff. I started doing older video series that I haven't done in a while, my vlog channel. So, and the rest of last year's Anime North video, I'm hoping to get done before this year's. So, yeah. So yeah, that's about it for me. CJ, where can people find you?
Anywhere at Canadian Jutsu, pretty much. So Facebook, the YouTube, just anywhere is Canadian Jutsu. Twitter, Twitch. I have a Patreon. I did that.
Oh, you made one?
I made a Patreon. It's Canadian Jutsu, surprise. But not that I haven't really done anything too much with it yet. I want to actually have something proper to show.
Did you at least make like a $1 tier so that?
Oh yeah, I did.
Yeah. Okay, good. Because there was that whole thing about Patreon changing the way it works.
And that was the reason why. Like, not only was Clay bothering me about it, but I was reading up on the changes that they were making. I'm like, I should probably fix this before. It's too late.
I egged a lot of my friends on it. I'm like, look, even if you don't use it right now, if you want to use it and not have to go through the bullshit that they're doing, like just make one and make it $1. Like our friend. Unreal just made one, treats it as a tip jar. He's like, I don't know what to use Patreon for, but I made one. So if you want to tip me, whatever. So, and that's really all it is. Like,
it's pretty much, if you go to Twitch, you go to Twitter, you go to Facebook, you go to Tumblr, you go to Instagram,
it's all Canadian
Jutsu everywhere. It's
just Canadian Jutsu.
It's just Canadian Jutsu. You don't even need to worry about fucking L's and R's nowadays. You just, it's just Canadian Jutsu. You can find me anywhere with my name, with my tag. And they're obviously below or around me at some point.
Yeah. And some of us are not as lucky because my Facebook is Zeromaster fan page. My Twitter is Zeromaster. If you want to get early access to this podcast, extra behind the scenes stuff, and early access to other videos and other behind the scenes stuff, you can back me on Patreon for as low as $1 or whatever the American equivalent of $1 Canadian is, to get access to some of that, as well as other rewards are available too. And I stream on Twitch Tuesdays and Thursdays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Something I forgot to mention, this Tuesday, I might be finishing Chrono Trigger. I am at Lavos, so those of you who are watching...
He thinks he's at the end of the game.
Well, I did the last dungeon, and I got to the Lavos, was it the little boss gauntlet, and I realized it's 11 a.m. 11 p.m. I need to go to bed because I work a 9-to-5 job. So, I'm gonna have to redo some of the fights. I know, like, all that's left is a ton of boss fights. So, that's gonna happen, probably on Tuesday if I'm lucky. I've got 2 hours. Hopefully I can get through it. But yeah, so that's happening as well. So, if you guys want to support the show, but you don't have any money, you can download the Brave browser using the affiliate link. Talked about Brave browser before, made by the original creators of the Mozilla Firefox. They moved over and made a new company, and it has built-in support options. By the way, the more you use it, not only are you protecting yourself, and it blocks third-party ad things, like you go search something on Google, it doesn't appear in the ads on Facebook if you're using the Brave browser, which is nice, and it actually tells you what it's blocking. They now have added it into, while you're using the browser, you can they'll give you tokens which you can use to support your favorite websites, and that turns into money eventually. It usually takes a couple of months before it turns into money, but I have gotten paid because people have done that, so that's appreciative there. And why not protect yourself at the same time? I am an affiliate also with Indie Gala, so if you want to save money on indie games, support me and support indie developers at the same time. They also do free games all the time. You can use the affiliate link down below to support us, as well as save some money on some games and just get some free stuff too, because why not? But anyways, guys, I think that's going to do it for this podcast. Once again, I am Zeromaster, and with me tonight was...
Canadian Jutsu.
And we will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.
Stay frosty, guys.
Said it.
I did it.
First time in a long time.
Again.